almost heaven. West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is all there, older than the trees.
Attention citizens, nuclear strike imminent. Please exit the area at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your cooperation.
Wow.
That's an intro.
That is an intro. So welcome along to our new monthly feature. This is Monsters of Fallout 76. And each episode, we are going to be talking about a different monster that's in the computer game, Fallout 76, which is based on creatures that we've talked about before, or that we haven't talked about before as well. And this first episode revolves around Mothman. So Mothman is a character in the Fallout 76 game. And we're going to talk about this each episode and a different monster that's in this game.
Yeah, exactly. So Fallout 76 particularly is one of my all-time favourite games. It got quite a lot of stick when it came out, and it still does, but fuck the haters.
I hadn't even played it. I've seen it, but I've never played it.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And like Greg said, it's based in West Virginia, in the Appalachia, where we know there's lots of famous sort of paranormal cases, like the Mothman we're going to talk about.
Yep.
Future episodes going to be talking about the Grafton Monster, a case that was featured in Project Blue Book as well, the Flatwoods Monster, all sort of real cases from around West Virginia and the surrounding states in Appalachia. And these are monsters that are featured in Fallout 76 as enemies, sometimes as friends, but they all feature. And again, it's quite cool to sort of talk about the monster and how it's portrayed in the game, and then then look at the actual story behind each of these. I thought that would be a pretty cool thing to do.
Definitely.
So we actually talked about Mothman in our second ever episode.
It was the second ever episode. I remember it was an early one. Wow.
So it's time to revisit.
Definitely. Overdue, in fact. That's over 2 years ago. Wow. Mental.
There are aliens in the Fallout games. In all the games, there's been like some sort of alien or UFO feature. That's cool. That's why I like it as well, because UFOs and aliens. But they're not based on anything like actual events. It's just like more in general. So we won't talk about them in this series, but we will be talking about the other monsters. So let's crack on. The first episode is Mothman.
Super.
So in the game, there are a number of different versions of Mothman. They all have different names that you can come across.
Okay.
There's the wise Mothman, which is a friendly Mothman, and he imparts his wisdom into your character, giving you like a character like a bit of buff, a bit of intelligence, some more benefits in game. And you have to summon him by, this is interesting as well, by lighting up the landlocked lighthouse based on the real Somerville Lake lighthouse.
Oh, wow.
Which is a landlocked lighthouse, so it's nowhere near water. But it's a lighthouse.
That's weird.
So in the game, it's literally like on the side of a mountain. It's like, it's similar to how it is in real life. So based on the real Somerville Lake lighthouse, which was built kind of a bit of a result of a joke, where there was this couple and he had a friend that was building wind turbines, and he said like, "Oh, sends a wind turbine." In the end, he did. Ended up sort of using the base of a wind turbine and built it into a lighthouse, basically. And it sort of came like a bit of a community project where people sort of chipped in, supplied things. Local light fitters came and put the light in. So it's got rotating like a lighthouse does. So it's like a real working lighthouse, but
nowhere near the water.
Nowhere near the water. It's like a bit of like a tourist attraction.
So we've got a thing like that in Oxford. The Shark. I don't know if you've seen that. So there's a house in the centre of Oxford, and you can Google it. And there is a shark in the top of a house, like pointing down, so its head's in the top of the house.
yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah, so nowhere near anywhere where a shark would be, and it's randomly in the roof. But
Yeah, so you have to light up this light on this lighthouse, and that summons this wise Mothman that you then
Okay.
interact with, and it gives you his sort of wisdom.
yeah, okay, that's cool. That's cool.
And we've got the stalking Mothman,
Obviously,
vengeful Mothman, and a glowing Mothman. So obviously, nuclear war is basis of the Fallout games.
yes.
Fallout 76 is set. Oh my god, I'm gonna get this wrong now. I sound like a noob. 25 years after the bombs went off.
Noob.
Still relatively because the other Fallout games are set like hundreds of years after sort of bombs gone off. 76 is like 25 years after. So everything's still quite fresh and
Yeah.
green, still like sort of new. Whereas in the other games, it's quite like bland. There's no vegetation or anything. It's all been sort of gone. But Fallout 76 is quite well done. So a lot of creatures are like glowing because they're irradiated. Well, the radiation stuff that gives them like different powers and stuff as well.
So what I'll commit to, Ash, because as we talked about offline, I've not actually played this game at all. I know nothing about Fallout 76. So my commitment is that by the next episode that we do, I'll be playing it.
Cool.
I'll give it a go. Xbox rules.
Good. Most of the variants of the Mothman are quite aggressive. The stalking Mothman kind of just follows you. So it's dead creepy because you just like sort of see these glowing eyes sort of in the distance, or you'll hear the noise and think that there's someone near me. And he just like sort of there just watching you. But if you attack him, he will like defend and attack you back. But
Yeah. I'm just pulling it up as well. So I can see that he's not aggressive, but will defend himself when he's attacked, and it looks bloody creepy, I must say.
He's just kind of like shock waves from his like vibrations to sort of send like a shock wave at you, and that's like how he attacks. And he like zips, like that teleports almost like from part to part. So he just disappears, don't know where he is, and he pop up behind you. So why are you trying to prevent it? Yeah. And in the game, because obviously most of the places in the game are based on real places, and it's mad because people have obviously gone to West Virginia and took photos of the actual towns, what towns in the game is based on.
Okay, yeah.
I've seen them in real, and there's a place in the game called Point Pleasant,
which we'll come on to a bit later. Yeah,
and that's where sort of that has the Mothman Museum, which is there in real life. The Mothman statue is identical to the one that's in the real Point Pleasant, and so on the people there's sort of characters that live in that Point Pleasant called cultists. They're like Mothman cultists that obviously all believe in the Mothman.
Yeah.
They have like a shrine to him, and they'll attack anyone that comes into Point Pleasant because they don't want anyone else sort of coming into their space.
How have I not played this game before? I've seen it. I've seen the game, but yeah.
So especially 76 for all the sort of paranormal stories and stuff, it really, really does a good job of, and which we'll find out over the next few months when we talk about each one.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's kind of, it's not really a main character in the game, but it's quite a prominent character that seems to always be there, pops up there and thereabouts. So that's kind of how it's portrayed in the game.
Yeah.
So I guess now we'll talk about the legend, the real stories behind the Mothman.
Yeah, so Mothman is something that I'd heard of a long time ago, because sort of my, like as we've talked about previous, like my journey into paranormal and all that kind of stuff started quite a long time ago, and then I sort of fell out of not interest, but other things life gets in the way, and then I've sort of revisited it. So Mothman was actually a story or a legend or whatever you want to call it that I'd heard of, and culminated in me reading the book, The Mothman Prophecies,
Yeah.
which is a great book, actually. I really enjoyed reading that.
John
And
King.
then I watched the film, which was of the same name and starred Richard Gere in 2002. Not so great. The book was definitely better than the film, but it was all good. It's all good. So, as you said, the Mothman, it comes from Point Pleasant in West Virginia, and it's like a folklore um, of this humanoid creature. It's got wings. It's got glowing red eyes, and glowing red eyes seem to be the sort of the main sort of calling card, as it were, of the Mothman. And um, basically, there was some grave diggers that reported a sighting when they were digging some graves um, in November '66. They thought they spotted something. They glanced up, something that was sort of flying overhead, and it appeared to be a massive figure that was moving rapidly from tree to tree. And the grave diggers later described it as like a brown human being, so real dark. Um, uh, and they were the first sort of major sort of sighting of it. It would become known as a Mothman because it looked like a winged human. But it was always something that remained elusive. There was never really any sort of, there's no video of it, there's no cameras. And back in the 60s, people didn't carry around cameras. And it only sort of, it was only for a sort of certain time. It was like over the course of about a year or so, between 66 and 67, that the Mothman really sort of, the sightings intensified. And it was all around Point Pleasant. After these guys had their initial report, there was two couples that noticed a white winged creature, which was about 6 or 7 feet tall, standing in front of the car that they were all sitting in. Bit freaky, but they again said that the beast had like red eyes, about 6 inches apart. It had a huge wingspan of about 10 feet, and the apparent urge to avoid the bright headlights of the car, which is where this sort of dark figure comes from, because nobody had really seen it with any kind of lighting on it. So, according to other witnesses, the creature was able to fly at incredible speeds. Some say up to about 100 miles an hour, and all of them agreed that the beast was quite clumsy when it was running on the ground. So it was always sort of seen up in the air and was a bit clunky walking around. And if you see sort of some of the pictures and the size of this thing walking around with huge wings on its back, it's going to be quite top heavy, I would imagine.
Yeah, so I saw one description of it. It's like a slender, muscular man, about 7 feet tall, with like large white wings. Just imagine just seeing that just in front of you. Absolutely piss your pants, wouldn't you?
Oh, it would. And the statue, if you see the statue, and you can Google the statue, because like you say, in Point Pleasant, there is actually, they've sort of embraced Mothman. And it looks horrific. If that's what people are seeing, it's horrible thing. But more and more sightings were reported in the Point Pleasant area over the sort of the year between 66 and 67. And that's when this legend took a bit more shape. They reckon there was 8 additional sightings in the short space of 3 days after the first claims, including 2 firefighters who said that they saw a very large bird with large red eyes. And if you look at, again, if you Google the picture and Google the image, there's like a classic image of Mothman, this big black winged creature with glowing red eyes, and you could mistake it for like a huge bird, but the thing's like a pterodactyl size thing. It's huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah. And then people having sort of dreams and premonitions of like an impending
doom. Yeah.
very strange. And also believe some people claim to have had like strange phone calls and visits from the Men in Black.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Nice.
Another Fallout reference you can update again.
So basically, this became legend very quickly. And locals became convinced that they were seeing the Mothman in birds and other large animals, even long after there was like this prankster that they thought was pulling out the jokes. But it's worth noting that the Mothman legend bears a resemblance to several demon archetypes found among those who've experienced sleep paralysis. And like you mentioned, people have been dreaming about it and having visions. So some people have sort of suggested that Mothman is actually just like a human fear, and this legend's born out of the fact that somebody thinks they've seen something. And as you know, in certain places, we've had cases that we've talked about where people have like a mass hysteria. And I'm not saying this is mass hysteria, but people can almost be talked into seeing something that's not there, and they convince themselves that what they're seeing is Mothman. So they see two red eyes, and it could be a deer or something potentially. I'm not saying that's what it was, but in the dark of night, and you're seeing these red eyes glowing, it could be a wolf, it could be anything, and people are like, "Shit, there's Mothman," and then they'll go, "Oh, we saw Mothman last night," and then the next night somebody else has seen it, and then over the course of a short period of time, this legend has developed. So who knows if it's really like properly up there and true. However, there was an issue with the Silver Bridge. So the Silver Bridge was constructed in 1928 and connected Point Pleasant and Cayuga in Ohio. And the name was credited to aluminum, for the American references out there, coloured paint that was used. Now, on the 15th of December 1967, during rush hour, the bridge collapsed. And the bridge resulted in 31 vehicles falling into the river, killing 46 people and injuring 9, which is unusual for a bridge to collapse. But people believe that it was Mothman who caused the disaster. So it's one of those enduring mysteries now, which is there's a sign up that says that the Silver Bridge collapsed. And people are saying that it's basically the only thing that could have happened, because there was this foreboding, was that Mothman had actually caused the bridge collapse, because there was Mothman sightings in the preceding days. So the bridge collapse followed sightings of the Mothman, and it wasn't long before people started to connect both Mothman sightings and the bridge collapse and put 2 and 2 together and come up with 5 potentially. But John Keel, the author of Mothman Prophecies, conflated that the Mothman sightings and the bridge disaster were connected. He also incorporated UFO activity, and his story took hold, and the town soon became iconic amongst many conspiracy theorists, ufologists, and fans of the paranormal. Point Pleasant now is known for the Mothman legend, and decades later, it's still like an ongoing and enduring kind of sort of homage to what happened back in the 60s. And as we mentioned right at the start, in 2002, the film based on the book called Mothman Prophecies, Richard Gere plays a reporter basically who seems to have witnessed the Mothman shortly before. Whose wife seems to have witnessed the Mothman shortly before her death, and he gets sort of sucked into it and tries to figure out what the Mothman is. Now, I've watched the film, I've read the book, and the book was so much better than the film. The film was not great, I'll be honest with you. But yeah, it's one of those ones that's like we talked about Moment of Contact, and down in South America, in the town, it's all dedicated. They've got UFO statue up, and they've really embraced it. Now, Point Pleasant have fully embraced Mothman, which is crazy. They've got, like you mentioned, they've got a museum. They have like Mothman days and parades and all that kind of stuff, and it's like the weirdest thing. I can't even imagine in the UK, unless I've missed something. I can't imagine us doing something like that.
We have cheese rolling.
Oh, we do have cheese rolling down the
festival.
hill. That's fairly close to me in Gloucester.
Is it?
That's fucking mental. If you
I've
see
seen
them,
clips.
it's just people breaking their legs and all sorts, and they win the cheese. That's it. It's like you've done all of that to win some cheese. But yeah, we don't sort of celebrate an urban legend, do we? Really?
No, even like the big cases. Like I went when I went to Rendlesham, and
Yeah.
absolutely nothing.
Mm.
I went to like the town of Rendlesham, and I went to the shops. I was asking people. It's like, yeah, there's nothing. Like apart from the little trail, it's basically a little signpost that you follow around the forest.
Mm.
That's it. There's nothing at all to say we've got one of the biggest, well-known cases in the world.
Yeah.
And like Roswell, you got like the Roswell Festival. It's got everything that goes on over there. Rendlesham, probably not quite on the same scale, but still one of the top cases like Roswell, where everyone in the world knows about it. And we have nothing. It's literally nothing.
It's insane. And where we've done the episode on Rendlesham, and like the history that's there, so it's not as even if it was just like those few nights in 1980. It's like going back 900,000 years in that particular area, and there's still, maybe that's just a British thing.
Maybe not to make a fuss over things.
It's like, no, we don't talk about that kind of stuff here. We don't talk about that. But yeah, so it's good to see that they embrace it, and it obviously attracts people to go to the festivals and even seeing the statues. So yeah,
and end up in video games.
Yeah, and ended up in video games. You know you've made it when you become a character in a video game.
That'd be cool. I did find a case because I was looking sort of if there's anything more sort of recently. There have been like obviously some sightings in the 2000s and stuff. There's a couple of grainy photographs that you can't really tell.
Yeah.
I did find one from Georgia in the Middle East, I guess. Isn't that the Middle East? Near Russia.
Okay, yeah.
And their newspaper called, I'm going to butcher the name, it's in Russian, I think. Shvavdanyanya Gruzia newspaper.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Local, you're a regular reader.
Yeah.
And they claim that Mothman sightings in Moscow foreshadowed 1999 Russian apartment bombings, which killed more than 300 people.
Wow.
So it's that kind of sightings around, and then some tragic event happens.
Yeah, that's weird. That is weird.
There's a book in 1970, before John Keel's book, from Gray Barker called The Silver Bridge. And that mentions, amongst other things, that the Mothman or Birdman who visited like the area around Point Pleasant and stuff.
Yeah.
1966. And he, like you mentioned earlier, sort of like the psychological side of it, where he sort of talks to local residents and how they sort of dealt with it before and after the bridge collapse, and sort of why people felt the way they did and why they sort of put it onto Mothman. I guess when things happen, people do try and look for answers, And
Yes.
if that's sort of what you come to, that's what you think of it. Something that people to grab onto.
Yeah, I suppose it gives some kind of, especially if it's just like a tragic accident and there is no explanation, and there's been this kind of urban legend around before it. I can imagine it's quite, I don't know what the right word is, but it's kind of like, it's easier to say that something's caused it than to not know why it's been caused at all and not have any answer. So you kind of get in some kind of, I say closure, that's not the right word, but to be able to blame something for a tragic accident, yeah, it's definitely, you always, when there's accidents, you're always looking for somebody to blame, or something must have happened to cause this, rather than it just be a tragic accident. And what better than Mothman, this mysterious creature that nobody's really got solid evidence of, and it fits the bill quite nicely.
Yeah, and you would shit your pants.
Oh Christ, yeah, absolutely. Especially if I just see these glowing red eyes, that'd be enough to freak me out anyway. And then just sort of see him going up in the air, I'd be like, fucking Jesus Christ. But
Cool. So, yeah, we hope you enjoyed the first episode of The Monsters of Fallout 76. See you next time.
bye.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is all there, older than the trees, younger than
Attention
the
citizens.
mountains.
Nuclear strike imminent. Please exit the area at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your cooperation.
Welcome to the second episode of Fallout 76 Monsters from Pursuit of the Paranormal. Welcome back, Greg.
Hello, Ash. How are we? I'm looking forward to this
very
one.
Good. I am. We had quite popular the first episode was when we talked about the Mothman.
Yes.
And I think this is going to be even better.
Yeah. I like this story as well. I've researching and watching videos and all sorts, so excited about this one.
It's a cool
And
story.
I've played the game
Awesome.
because we spoke
Awesome.
last time. But over to you.
We'll talk about that in the next episode. You'll play it a bit more, and we can talk about the game itself a bit more next month. So, this episode, we are going to be talking about a very famous case, a case that was investigated by Project Blue Book,
Mm-hmm.
officially, the American US Air Force UFO investigation project, and it's the Flatwoods Monster.
Yes.
So, again, another sort of legendary monster that is featured in the game Fallout 76, based on a real life alien encounter.
Yes.
Like last time, I'll talk about sort of how the monster is portrayed in the game.
Yep.
And then we'll then talk about the actual story behind the whole legend of what happened.
Sounds good.
Back in 1950.
52.
52, off the back of my head, yeah.
Yep.
So, in the game, the Flatwoods Monster, and this is from Fallout Wiki website, the Flatwoods Monsters are aliens described as a hovering creature with glowing purple eyes capable of abducting wastelanders.
Oh.
Wastelanders are the name for the playable and non-playable characters in the game. Like, you are a Wastelander. We're in the nuclear wasteland.
Yes,
we
are.
In the game. As part of the storyline, you're told about the creature, warned that its mere presence can warp the mind of all but the most iron-willed.
Ooh.
In pre-nuclear war West Virginia, near the town of Flatwoods, the real town. Many claim to see a mysterious creature with glowing eyes. Colton Pickens, in the game, claims that he was taken onto a spaceship and subjected to experimentation, but the police dismissed his account. After the war, there are accounts of wastelanders being taken, only being able to recall a blinding light afterwards.
Okay.
In-game, the Flatwood Monster's head is encased in a purple helmet, which obscures most of its face. The rest of the body is sealed in a protective suit, and there are no visible legs. It's got 3 fingers and green blood, which can be seen when you fight the Flatwoods Monster, which is a tough battle. And talking about that, you encounter the Flatwoods Monster
Yep.
in random sort of spawns, random encounters all over the map. Usually at night they spawn, but they can last until daytime if they don't get killed. And the monster will teleport around during a battle, making it difficult to get him, and he's quite a tough enemy. And even more spookily is when the Flatwoods Monster's nearby, the area becomes bathed in this creepy purple light just around. So you can be like sort of going back near your base and you just see sort of like your buildings or whatever in this purple sort of tinge. You know the Flatwoods Monster's somewhere nearby. So it's like sort of like walking around like he's here somewhere. I know he's here. And this purple light, this purple glow, also lets the monster take control of other animals, enemies, even like your own base. You have like defenses and rocket launchers and stuff on your base.
Oh, wow.
You can take control of them to start shooting you rather than
Christ.
shooting. Usually they shoot the enemies, but they can sort of take over the base defenses.
Yeah.
And even other monsters like the Mothman, you can control. So you could get attacked by the Mothman and the Flatwoods Monster at the same time.
Oh, wow. So it's quite a tough opponent.
It's quite cool. There's quite a few different variations, like with the Mothman. Some of them more stronger, and they can be quite aggressive. You can sort of return back to your base, your home you built, and you can just find that the turrets are already shooting like other parts of your base, because you think what the hell's going on, and you see it in purple. You're like, shit, there's a Flatwoods Monster, and then you got to try and find him. We start shooting him, and then he'll just disappear and reappear behind you and stuff. So it's
wow.
It's pretty cool. And like I say, they spawn all over the map, so you can kill them, and then another one will spawn. It's not that common, but you know when they're there.
Okay, I look forward to reaching that point in the game.
Yeah, so that's sort of how it's portrayed in the game.
Yeah.
And do you want to introduce the real story behind it?
Yeah, so legend has it. So the Flatwoods Monster is also known as the Braxton County Monster, Braxy, or Phantom of Flatwoods. It's interesting that you mention about the eyes being purple, because some of the depictions show like red eyes as well, which is very much like how the Mothman was portrayed. Yeah. In legend. So, and it's strange again that Virginia and West Virginia have got these lots of these creatures, and I wonder if they potentially could be the same thing, I suppose. And depending where you are in West Virginia, that's your version of like the Mothman.
It's around a similar time, 1952 as well, isn't it? To Mothman.
Yeah, so it's part of the folklore there now. And on the evening of September 12th, 1952, a bright object crossed the night sky. So what happened was, there's a group of people, they spotted, so it was 2 brothers, Edward and Fred May, and their friend Tommy, said that they saw a bright object cross the sky and land on the property of a local farmer, G. Bailey Fisher. The boys went to the home of Kathleen May, where they told their story, and May, accompanied by the 3 boys, local children Neil Nunley and Ronnie Shaver, and a West Virginia National Guardsman.
Ooh.
Yes. So they went to a farm in an effort to locate what they thought might have been a meteor or crashed craft at that point. They reached the top of a hill where one of the boys then said he saw a pulsing red light. The guardsman then flashed his flashlight in the direction and momentarily saw a tall, man-like figure with a round red face surrounded by a pointed, hood-like shape.
Ooh, spooky.
Spooky. So descriptions varied, but in an article for Fate magazine based on tape-recorded interviews, UFO writer Gray Barker described the figure as approximately 10 feet tall, so 3 meters. That's a big.
That's tall. That's very tall.
Yeah, that's sort of what you think. That's 1.5 times a tall human, at sort of 6 feet ish. With a round blood red face, a large pointed hood-like shape around the face, eye-like shapes which emitted greenish orange light, and a dark black or green body. They described the figure as having small claw-like hands, cloven-like folds, and a head that resembled the ace of spades. So the picture is got, if you can imagine the ace of like the spades logo on a pack of cards, that was sort of like either behind its head or part of its head shape, and created this sort of round pointed, I don't know what you would call it. Then they basically dropped. Obviously, it was panic at that point because you see something 10 foot tall looking like this weird thing out of Doctor Who.
And you think like you saw this thing crash and this thing's come out of it.
And you got to think the late 40s and 50s were a time where
Saucer fever,
ETs. There was like all the different films, the old school films came out where it was like the nuclear era. Everything was happening in America at that point, and if you saw something strange, that's immediately what you would think was happening. There's like some alien invasion. So apparently this figure started to make a hissing sound and glided towards the group. The guardsman screamed, dropped his flashlight, and everybody legged it. The group then said that they smelled a pungent mist, and some later said that they were nauseated. So that ties in with the purple mist that you're talking about in the game.
Yeah.
The local sheriff and a deputy had been investigating reports of a crashed aircraft in the area. They searched the site of the reported monster, but saw, heard, and smelled nothing. And according to Gray Barker's account, the next day, one of the Braxton Democrats claimed to have discovered skid marks in the field and an odd gummy deposit, which was subsequently attributed by UFO enthusiast groups as evidence of a saucer landing. So a bit of an odd one. And then newspaper stories were carried out throughout the country. Obviously, this thing went wild. It was on large networks. Hundreds of phone calls were received from all over the country. The National Press Services rated the story number 11 for the year, which is pretty cool. A minister from Brooklyn came to question the family. Pittsburgh paper came and sent a special reporter. UFO and Fortean writers like Gray Barker and Ivan Sanderson also arrived to investigate. So there was a lot of furore around this particular story. And like we just said, you've got this sort of alien frenzy in America at that point. You'd had Roswell 5 years before. So people were still talking about Roswell. And it was, they claimed that some of the aliens were at the base for about 5 years, and it all sort of came out a bit later about Roswell. So you've got people, you've got like the atomic bombs, you've got everything going pretty wild in America at that time. I've watched a lot of films that are like from the 50s and 60s where people, it's all about alien invasions and they come in to take over the earth. So you can see why people have got this heightened sense of panic when they're seeing objects in the sky. So I get it.
Yeah, and I believe one of the boys weed himself in panic.
Oh, really?
When he's running away, yeah. It would be pretty scary. And like the image that you sort of see
Yeah.
associated with the Flatwoods Monster is similar
Yep.
to how it's portrayed in the game as
Yeah.
well, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. But he is dressed more like that shape and figure, but in like a spacesuit.
More like an alien sort of.
Yeah, so they've
character.
made it
Yeah.
into like a true
Yeah.
alien. And the TV series Project Blue Book
Yeah.
did an episode on the Flatwoods Monster, and it's brilliant. It's
Oh, okay.
really, really well done. And they go like into the woods where it's sort of like where they think this thing crashed and the woods were all on fire, and they see this creature.
Okay.
And then, and obviously J. Allen Hynek,
Yep.
who was brought in by the Air Force to kind of debunk all of these cases.
Mhm.
He obviously went to Flatwoods to investigate it. And there's quite a few, obviously, skeptics.
Yes.
Like,
Yep.
you get quite a few theories as to explain the different aspects of the story. And the main one being what they saw in the sky was a meteor.
Yep.
There was reported that night across a number of states that
Okay.
could be
Yeah.
seen. And similar to cases that we've investigated, UFO identified, where someone's seeing a light coming down, in their words, and then they've gone to where they think it's landed, and then seeing something in the woods. Very, very similar to this.
Yeah.
We did a case in Bolton in Manchester, England. Very, very similar. But at the exact same time that they saw this thing coming out the sky and landing, was the exact same time there was a meteor recorded by the UK Meteor Watch. This was
Okay.
recorded from all over the UK
Yeah.
at the exact same time they saw it. So that sort of half of the story can be explained away by it being a meteor. It's very similar to this, where they saw something land out the sky or come down.
Yeah.
They've gone to where they think it landed, and obviously seen something and associated the two parts of the story, even though they're not related.
Yeah.
So they could have seen this alien creature. Could just be coincidence that this meteor was at the exact same time. It could have been an alien,
Yep.
but the meteor wasn't related to that. It just happened at the same time. Or it could have come on the meteor, or it could have been a spaceship crashing.
It could have been. Yeah.
It might just look
Yeah.
like a meteor on the in the sky.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose all those theories. But it's interesting that the two separate incidents, if there were separate incidents, would coincide at exactly the same time.
Yeah, it does happen.
Yeah.
Like with our one. She went to the woods where she thought the light came down and saw a glowing light in the woods at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's like a ball of light.
Yeah.
And she thought it was the same object. We proved that it wasn't, but it could have been.
Mhm.
In her mind, it was the same thing. So that's kind of the object side of it. And obviously there's been quite a few theories as to what the alien was. Quite a few different ones.
Yeah, the main one seems to be a large barn owl perched on a tree limb. And I saw a photo, unconnected, of a particular owl in America. And this thing was massive. This guy was sat next to it, and this thing's huge.
Yeah.
And they've got like eyes that light up they don't light up in the dark, obviously, but when there's like a flashlight, the reflection on the back of the retina, same with like dogs and people when you have your photo taken, old school cameras, we got the red eye. It's possible, I suppose. That was definitely one of the main sort of explanations about this barn owl. And that the foliage beneath the owl could have created the illusion of the lower portions of the creature, described by some as being a pleated green skirt. So,
Yeah. I mean, that is the favoured.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Project Blue Book concluded.
Right.
I think I might be wrong, but I'm sure that's what they conclude, that it was an owl creature.
Yeah, because I suppose if you've got a barn owl sat on a tree limb, and you've got this apron of what appears to be clothing below, the feet of the barn owl would be claws on a tree and would be halfway up the body of the creature that you're seeing. So it could potentially have these talons, I suppose. Convenient.
Yes.
It ticks a lot of boxes, but
Did you say it has the small claw-like hands? That is that just the feet halfway up a tree?
Yeah.
And the rest of the body's the foliage.
Yeah. Again, though, unless you're there, it's very difficult because eyewitness testimony at best of times is rubbish, and you're remembering the last time you remembered it, and then you've got all these people remembering different bits, and this almost like a Chinese whisper becomes quite.
And this is a group of kids mainly, young kids, and they could feed into each other's sort of excitement and scarediness, and sort of bounce off each other. Like that must be some sort of alien because they're in this sort of heightened state of sort of alert or panic.
Yeah, there's also saying that the nausea that was experienced by people is also a side effect of mass hysteria or hysteria. So that could tie in as well. And if the little boy weed himself, it was obviously there was a lot of adrenaline hyping up of each other's emotions. Because, I would imagine you see something like that and you're walking into a forest and seeing this thing at first glance, you're already mentally alert, scared, your brain's working overtime, and with pareidolia, that you see something and your brain tries to make a pattern of what it is.
It's like when you wake up in the middle of the night and sort of you look up and there's just a light in your room. You think it's someone stood in your room, but it's actually just your coat hanging up on the back of the door.
Yeah.
So because it's in that shape and you're not fully aware of what's going on, it looks like the outline of someone stood at the foot of your bed. You have that brief moment where you just absolutely shit yourself. You're like, fuck, and then you realise it's the coat hanging up or whatever on the door.
Yeah, but that moment just before you realise what it is, there is panic in you, isn't there?
Yeah, I did it a few times.
I've done it and thought I witnessed a UFO. I don't know if I told you that story. And I was looking at where I used to live when I was about 15, and out of the windows I could look over sort of some of the hills, and I could see these lights sort of going up and down this hill in the distance. And I was trying to figure out what it was, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I thought, wow, it's got to be something. I can't see that there's any roads there because it's on the Ridgeway, which is quite an unmotorized part of the sort of the hillside round here. And so I went to bed, and obviously I was quite hyped up emotionally, just thinking, shit, have I just seen UFOs? Anyway, I woke up in the middle of the night. I looked out the window, and there was this large glowing white object. I could see through the curtains. I was thinking, oh, fuck, they're coming for me. I genuinely thought that.
Wow.
And I was thinking, oh, my God. And I was panicking. I pulled the curtain back just to try and peek through. It was the fucking moon, wasn't it? Full moon. Quite low in the sky. And I literally... I was literally thought I was about to be abducted. I thought I was going to be taken. But that was around the time when the X-Files was big. The X-Files was out, so I was already expecting something bad to be happening. So these kids are going through this mass hysteria of being hyped up. They've seen a crashed spacecraft, because back then they didn't. It was all spacecraft alien invaders, wasn't it? Back then it was always us versus them. So yeah, I can get why their brains have sort of gone, what the bloody hell are we looking at?
Definitely. I've just been looking, as I was looking earlier as well. It's obviously with the Mothman, there was lots of different sightings from lots of different people and all this stuff. Where with Flatwoods, wasn't able to find any other reports. It's just this one. This one case.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was one thing that struck me, because like you say with Mothman, it was reported at the time quite a lot, and people still claim to see it, whereas the Flatwoods Monster was that night only, and that seemed to be it. So in my mind, I think the barn owl thing seems to fit a lot of it, but you don't know. You don't know.
So, yeah, that is the Flatwoods Monster, second episode of Fallout 76 Monsters. Join us next month when we will be talking about the Grafton Monster.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is all there, older than the trees.
Attention citizens, nuclear strike imminent. Please exit the area at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your cooperation.
Good evening, Greg. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Ash. How are you?
Very well, very well. So this is the third episode of our Fallout Monsters series.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you the question.
No, is the answer.
That's the answer. Have you played the game since you bought it?
I've only played it the first bit where I've got out of the mountain bunker thing right at the start. And because I was expecting it to be a little bit more like Call of Duty, and it wasn't, I kind of stopped at the moment. But I intend to play it. But so that's as far as I got. I've got out of the vault, and then I don't really know where I've got to go or what I've got to do.
Okay, I'm very disappointed, but
I'll take that as a telling off.
Thought you'd be like Mr. Fallout knowledge, like encyclopedia by now. We could bounce off.
No.
But yeah, no. Ah, well.
Maybe for the next one.
I'm gonna hold you to that one. You got a month to.
I got a month.
At least get to because the monsters we talked about so far are near the start of the game, so you can at least come across at least one of them, and then I'll let you off with that one. I'll take a picture of it once you find it in the game, and
yeah, I'll do that.
Cool. So this week we are talking about another monster from the Fallout 76 video game, and this month is going to be the Grafton Monster.
Yes.
So, like the previous two episodes, I'll talk about the monster in the game, how it's portrayed, a bit of origin story for it, and then Greg will come in and sort of talk about the real life stories.
Yeah.
What actually happens with the Grafton Monster and how it came to be.
Yes.
So, the Grafton Monster. It's a powerful enemy creature in the game, and it's based around sightings that we come onto in the Grafton area, hence Grafton Monster. In the game, it's big, hulking creature. It attacks on sight, so you can't really sort of be friendly with it. Like some of the others have sort of friendly versions, but this one doesn't. It will attack on sight. It attacks by throwing large rocks. It has a toxic gas as well to attack you with. It's basically depicted as a mutated version of the legendary Grafton Monster. Greyish-green skin and sharp claws. And it came about after West Tech. So West Tech, I guess it's similar to the Umbrella Corporation in the Resident Evil series. They're sort of controlling everything. They were carrying out experiments called FEV, which is the Forced Evolutionary Virus, and this was pre-war, the nuclear apocalypse. They were doing experiments on people and stuff using this virus, which sort of altered DNA and the genetics. So that's how this monster and other monsters in the game, other creatures like super mutants, came about because of these experiments by West Tech. So the Grafton Monster, the resulting monster, is a headless, hairless, with a leathery texture. It stands at around 2.5 meters with an oversized chest. You can see in the pictures below for the show art. It looks
Yep.
like pretty scary.
Very weird.
Very weird. And it can maneuver in the tight spaces. And like I said, it is very, very hostile. Very, very big chest and arms. When you first come across it, because it's so big, you're literally like, what the things is the big way of thinking. It's loud and it just comes marching towards you and throwing rocks and this black gas thing, oil. In fact, more like an oil that he just throws at you. Especially if you're quite new and not very powerful. Tends to just run off because it's not the fastest. So it can be quite fast, but you can just run off and sort of get out of the area and then come back when you're a bit stronger to fight him. There's different versions of the Grafton Monster in the game, like with the Flatwoods Monster and the Mothman, sort of different ones that you can come across. You've got the glowing Grafton Monster, again, covered in radiation because of the nuclear fallout, the nuclear war that's been going on, and the diseased Grafton Monster, which is more aggressive, so even more scarier, and it can give your character, a disease, so you can catch the disease off it, and that can obviously hamper your abilities and stuff like that. Obviously, because it is quite a strong character, the rewards you get for killing it are pretty good. It's classed as like more like a boss than other creatures, but they tend to be kind of in the same place. You sort of know where they are, and you can go and like find it if you want to try and kill it. And he's a boss in one of the missions as well.
Okay.
He doesn't really seem to have a head, which makes it look creepy. He does have a head, but because the chest is like so big, it sort of comes up, so it sort of hides the head a little bit. Yeah. So when you first see it, it looks like there's this big grey moving rock. Is sort of how it looks like.
Yeah,
in the
it's
game.
A weird looking thing. Yeah,
it's
very, very much like the descriptions in real life, as it were. Because when I first started looking at it, it just looks like this weird, like Hulk thing without a head. but yeah, it has a head, but non-distinct. But
yeah, that's it. Like I say, it is very, very creepy to look at.
Yeah, when I was looking at the YouTube stuff on it, it showed the game and what it looks like in the game, because I haven't got that far yet. Yeah, very weird looking character. Very weird. So moving on to the real life. So as I indicated, the descriptions compare to the game very well, and it does look like it's like some kind of weird Hulk creature without a head, even though it does have a head. Claimed to be a humanoid bipedal creature, and it was originally said that it had white seal-like skin, but in an article in the Grafton Sentinel published on June 18th, 1964, an anonymous teenager claimed the creature was 9 feet tall and about 4 feet wide, which ties in with what it looks like in the game for definite.
Yeah.
But it was on June the 16th in 1964, around 11 o'clock at night. Robert Cockrell, a reporter for the Grafton Sentinel newspaper, was driving along the Tygart River on Route 119, known as Riverside Drive, on his way home from work. There, he suddenly encountered a large white creature on the right-hand side of the road, which was the side that the Tygart River was located. And according to Robert's account, the creature was lumbering around on the side of the road while a low whistling noise was being emanated from further away in the direction of the river. Cockrell at the time had no explanation for the noise, but later on, ufologist Gray Barker, believing that the creature had extraterrestrial origin, he suggested that the noise was being emitted from the creature's spaceship.
So with that, it's like very similar time again to the Mothman and the other thing. It sort
Yep.
of seems to be within that sort of few years where all this
Yep.
was sort of happening.
Yeah, definitely. And it's all around the time where there's quite a heightened thing about the space race. So we had the race to get to the moon. There was lots of films about aliens taking over. It's like post-war. It's that sort of new, sort of up and coming age in the world where people are like space monsters are a big thing and all that kind of stuff. But surprised by the encounter, Robert Cockrell initially slowed down as he was able to see that the creature was very large and appeared to be made entirely of muscle. It also had white seal-like fur and, disturbingly, didn't have a visible head. So some of the pictures, the artist drawings of this particular creature, it looks like if you've ever seen like a monkey or a gorilla where they've got sometimes you see them and they've got no fur, like completely bald, and they look like these superhuman type muscly things. That is the kind of impression I got that this thing looked a bit like. The creature moved quickly out of view, and upon realizing that the white obstruction was a living creature, Robert quickly accelerated down the road until he reached home, as I would.
Yeah. Get out of there.
Yeah, bye-bye. See you later, y'all. Cockrell called two of his friends, Jerry Morse and Jim Mauser. Cockrell explained the sighting to them and then asked them to come to a location of the sighting in order to investigate further. They did agree, but when they returned to the site, all they were able to find was trampled grass and a low whistling sound that seemed to follow them around the site. The next day at work, Robert mentioned this to the editor of the Grafton Sentinel, what he'd seen, but the editor did not take the sighting seriously. Robert assumed that nothing more would come of his sighting after that point. His friends, however, were fascinated with the idea of a monster on the loose and went around town telling as many people as they could. Ideal. In a very short time, monster hunting parties had formed, predominantly made up of local teens armed with baseball bats. Whatever they could find, they were going out to lynch the thing. These roving groups of teens scoured Riverside Drive near where the Cockrell had initially seen the creature, and soon new sightings were being reported. Spurred by the commotion and by the new sighting, the Grafton Sentinel interviewed some of the teenagers and produced an article about the creature on June the 18th, so 2 days later, called Teenage Monster Hunting Parties Latest Activity on Grafton Scene. So that's a headline,
It sounds quite like, but I may say about like it sounds a bit like a lynching party. It reminds me a bit of like the monster from Frankenstein, where he's kind of like misunderstood. Could just be like obviously a friendly something gone wrong somewhere, but it's friendly. He just wants to make friends, and then they come out with him at baseball bats looking for him and stuff. It's misunderstood monster.
So, misunderstood. More than 20 sightings were reported from this monster hunt, weirdly, with Robert interviewed them all in detail. One of them said, "I saw the monster near the river early in the morning. It saw me and instantly froze. It did not move. I was fishing at the time and left all my gear there and started to run away, as I would. As I ran, I turned and saw that it too turned away and started running off. As I got near my truck and began opening the door, I heard a whooshing sound and a bright light appear above the tree line. I drove off and got my gear 2 days later." So it's definitely like a UFO sort of kind of underlying thing. But again, the hysteria, people were talking about the whistling noise being part of a spaceship, that kind of thing. It's amazing. So the interesting bit about it, and it's something that I came across in multiple places, that the authorities were trying to sort of settle this down a bit because there was people turned monster hunters bringing loaded guns into the area. The tensions rising. Yeah, the police had to get involved and undertook their own investigation. So that's a positive thing. And the next day, on June the 19th, the Grafton Sentinel printed another article on the subject, dismissing the monster as simply a result of spring fever, as bored locals wildly managed a creature, which was instead a handcart piled high with boxes. But again, that goes to like the mass hysteria again, that people were seeing stuff and somebody's had a sight and everybody's a bit hyped up and everybody starts seeing these things.
I suppose because like these little towns in sort of West Virginia, these little towns, probably not much going on.
No,
and
exactly.
Like, something exciting, something happening. Let's all get involved. Let's, especially when sort of teens are involved and younger people, they may be a bit more likely to maybe fabricate something that they're out hunting and they see something and stuff. So it's
could be a bit more elaboration and stretching the truth a little bit.
Yeah.
So the handcart was the most likely cause for the story. And the sightings, according to the paper. The paper then stated it's fairly certain the monsters don't go around pushing handcarts loaded with boxes. So they kind of dismissed it, really. And it was depicted in the Fallout game, which does look like a white, muscly character. But there's also other sightings more recently. So there was a sighting in 1991 where a group of teenagers claimed to have seen a large black creature this time walking on two legs near the railroad tracks. The creature reportedly had red eyes.
Kind of sound like a bear.
Yeah.
Walk on the legs,
and then
2006.
Yeah, it could be because they're in the woods and all sorts of. Yeah, you could have a bear just on his back legs, and they're quite big when bears stand up, aren't they? 2016, yeah, and very scary. 2016, a man claimed to have seen the Grafton Monster while hiking in the woods. He reported seeing a large ape-like creature that stood on two legs. And in 2018, a woman reported seeing a large bipedal creature in her backyard. She described it as being approximately 7 feet tall with a muscular build. So,
it kind of, difficult. I mean, it sounds a bit similar to Bigfoot sightings as well, sort of the build and obviously not quite as wide as like the original sort of Grafton Monster sighting. And I found one from 2014 with a photo.
Okay.
With it, they got this photo. He's on Destination America as well. I think that must be a TV show.
Yeah.
And there's a photo called, it was like possibly a trail cam photo. And it looks like, it kind of looks like it does in the game. A big, grey monster, just off camera. But again, it could be a bear.
Yeah.
And it is sort of a black and white photo as well. So it looks grey. Maybe that's why it looks grey.
Yeah. And on the trail cam, they always look, it's almost black and white on the trail cam, isn't it?
But it's an interesting photo. And it looks, whatever it is big. Definitely is something. It's like you can tell it's not like a fake picture. They have caught something that is big. It looks scary, and I don't know if it ever was properly debunked as maybe a bear or something. It just says Grafton Monster, Taylor County.
I couldn't find anywhere where they sort of definitely ruled it out, but apart from like in the 60s where they were like, "Oh, it's just a bit of mass hysteria and the kids going wild," and that was it really. Very interesting, very Bigfoot-like, but the shape of it is quite distinctive, and that comes across in the game as well. It's a very weird-looking creature.
That's very scary. Very scary.
And that is Grafton Monster.
Yep, join us next episode when we will be looking at another famous cryptid that features in the game and in real life, and that is the Wendigo, or the Wendingo, however you want to pronounce it. So, yeah, looking forward to learning about that one.
Yeah,
we shall
definitely
see you all later.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is all there, older than the trees,
Attention citizens.
younger
Nuclear
than
strike
the
imminent.
mountains, blown
Please exit the area at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your cooperation.
Hello. Good evening, Greg. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Ash?
Very good. Very good. We are in for another episode of Fallout Monsters, episode 4, I want to say.
I think so, yep. I
so.
think so.
This month,
what cryptid creature monster are we talking about this time?
so we've had a little discussion about how to pronounce this one. And
Yeah.
I do believe both pronunciations are correct. However, I also found a third one, but I'll just leave that one. So it's the Wendigo or the Wendigo.
Wendigo. Okay.
Wendigo, the scary Wendigo legend. So, like previous episodes, I'll talk about how this creature is portrayed in Fallout 76.
Mhm.
And then we'll talk about the actual stories behind the real version of the Wendigo.
Yes. Creepy.
Very creepy. And I don't know too much about the real story, so I'm looking forward to that. But the in-game version is pretty mad. So if it's anything like the game's sort of folklore around it, the game lore, then yeah, it's very, very creepy.
It would sit right in a computer game as a monster. Let's just say that.
Cool. So in the game, the Wendigo is depicted as a tall, thin humanoid with long arms and legs, giving it an unsettling, almost spider-like appearance. Its grey skin is covered in bony spikes and ridges, and its glowing yellow eyes and sharp claws giving a menacing look. One of the most distinctive features of the Wendigo in Fallout 76 is its ability to emit a high-pitched shriek that can stun and disorient players. So what happens is one of the versions of it is like a boss type version of it, and when it does this shriek, basically you lose control of, you can't control your character anymore, and like your player runs away, like scared, like runs away in this big cave. This is going and then the players all run off, and you can't fight because you've like got too scared because of this shriek that comes from it. In addition to physical attacks, the Wendigo's ability to regenerate quickly makes it a tough opponent to defeat, and it's recommended that players bring heavy weapons and plenty of ammunition when facing the Wendigo. But it is hard to beat, and the loot and the rewards and experience from killing, especially the high level ones, are good for in-game.
Cool.
So the lore around the Wendigo in the game. So getting this from the nerdstash.com, who's got a bit of the Fallout lore, which says that the creature was once a human called Morris Stevens, who was once the leader of a raider tribe of cannibals called the Gurmans, which once terrorized the Savage Divide region in the game, which is like kind of the middle of the map in Fallout 76. The day came when this group made the troubling discovery that in fact their leader had broken the cardinal rule of do not eat other members of the gang. They're only supposed to eat other people, not their own. A wolf does not eat a wolf, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Lupus non morde lupum, for a bit of Latin. Lupus non morde lupum, which is a wolf does not eat a wolf.
I've never heard that.
I've got it tattooed on my arm. That's the only reason why.
Have you?
I know it. Yeah.
That's quite. I like that. Yeah, I did.
I've never heard that. The motto for the Warrington Wolves rugby league team.
I would have guessed it was either that or a rock band or something.
Yeah, so a wolf does not eat a wolf. Just came to me. That's like, yeah, very similar. That you don't eat your own gang.
Correct.
Eat other people, does not your own. So they kicked them out, and in exile, Morris and his wife found refuge in a cave that will ironically be later known in the game as the Wendigo Cave. The couple made the cave home, and for a while things were not too bad. Morris would go out hunting and bring back huge bounties of human meat for himself and his wife, but she only received a little bit of it. He ate most of it. But Mr. Stevens kept getting greedier and hungrier, as if all the meat he was getting couldn't satiate himself. He was just getting hungrier and hungrier all the time. And the two started changing, like physically, but it was more apparent with Mr. Stevens. And already rout with a hunger that nothing could satiate, Mr. Stevens finally gave in to the hunger, murdered his wife, and ate her.
Ooh.
He was that hungry.
Wow.
What happened afterwards is still shrouded within the myth, but it's believed that after he'd done this, he changed forever. He was no longer human, and he became the father of all Wendigos. He then started hunting his former tribe mates, eating and killing all them. And now all Wendigos come from him. So he's like the original progenitor, and then every other Wendigo is like a descendant of this original human-turned Wendigo creature.
Okay.
So that's the Fallout lore. I look forward to hearing the true version. But just the different types of Wendigos are in the game. You got the normal one, so a small
the normal,
one,
obviously. Yep.
the normal one, quite a basic one. And like the other cryptids we talked about, there's a glowing version. Obviously, this is in the aftermath of nuclear war and all the radiation and shit. A ravenous Wendigo, obviously more hungry and a bit harder to defeat than the other Wendigos. Scorched Wendigo, which is a Wendigo infected with the Scorched Plague, which is kind of getting into sort of the game itself. The Scorched are mainly it's human type creatures, and these Scorched beasts come out and they infect and they spray this plague that infects people.
Nice.
The Scorched are kind of like zombies a little bit, maybe, like, and they still like talking human a little bit, so like they whisper, so they're like,
okay.
So it's a little bit creepy. And you have the Wendigo Colossus, which is like a three-headed endgame boss, which is the one that makes you run away in fear. And it's actually quite difficult to defeat, and you definitely need a group of you to go into a cave and try and defeat this Wendigo Colossus. And that's a big. In fact, we use that one for the art for this episode. We can use that one. There's a cool picture we can use for that one.
Nice.
So yeah, that is the Wendigo in the game. Very gruesome backstory with that one.
So some of the things that you've been describing are not too dissimilar to the lore surrounding the real Wendigo. Or I say the real Wendigo. Is it real, or is it folklore, or is it just an animal that gets misdescribed, misidentified? But a lot of these creatures and cryptids that we talk about, not just in this game but other ones, they've all got a basis that there's definitely something has happened to at least one person. So I would talk about Wendigo. So the original Wendigo is from northern Native American tribes. So not saying that this West Virginia one is the same, but they do share many characteristics of the original Native American Wendigo.
Right.
From what I understand, the creature's physiology is between 5 foot and 7 foot tall, very gaunt and sickly thing. So looks rather ill, and in some descriptions, not bulky at all like a bear, werewolf, or Bigfoot, or any other normal stroke paranormal species, because usually they're quite big things, aren't they? Quite scary. And some of the other monsters in this game that we've spoken about are quite big, muscly type creatures. It's supposed to have pale grey skin or pale grey fur, canine teeth showing, red or black eyes, bipedal dog-like legs, but long, lanky arms, humanoid hands with claws, and a head that can be like a twisted fanged man or animalistic, usually canine-like. So I think it's a bit like a werewolfy kind of character. If you've watched American Werewolf in London, the picture that I've seen of, or the artist's impression of the Wendigo is a bit like almost like a wolf type head, fangs, but looks very human like. So that sort of lends itself to what you were just talking about in the game. So
Cool.
the beast is a carnivore, and like you mentioned, it's got an unending hunger for flesh. Feeds on man, animals, any living creature, could be solitary or in a small pack. Often said to growl, grunt, moan, and have a blood-curdling scream like a banshee, which ties in with what you said in the game.
Yeah, the shriek.
Shriek. Lives in a dark, damp, isolated area, like a cave, abandoned mines, or forest reclaimed structures, so houses in the woods and those kind of things. Which, if I saw one of them coming out of like a Blair Witch kind of Bell Witch house, I think that'd freak me out. So the beast is a spirit of gluttony, greed, and wrath, associated with cannibalism. Hence why it's got this unnerving thirst for flesh. And according to Native American folklore, the Wendigo is literally a spirit of malice that possesses man and creatures, distorting them and driving them mad to kill and feed, which is exactly how you described it. And he ended up killing and eating his wife, didn't he? Only seen from dusk till dawn while the sun is down, which suggests it's nocturnal or intolerant of lights. Can invade dreams and cause night terrors. Wow. So that sounds like a horrible thing. And may be able to speak human tongue, which ties in with that sort of whispering that you were talking about. Though I doubt anybody would wish to be so close to the said creature to try and listen to it. And whilst it does share characteristics, imagine in your dream you see something like that. Whilst it does share characteristics with werewolves, keep in mind this creature is supposed to be a different in form and action. So it ties in with, if you looked at American Werewolf in London, that film, the character where he transforms into the werewolf, that's the kind of vision I get in my head of what I think it describes.
I watched that not long ago, and it does not hold up.
Doesn't, does it? It doesn't.
Like, I don't remember it being this like this.
This shit. There's loads of horror films. A lot of horror films don't hold up, do they? And you just think, oh, it's a shame. But the one bit that gets me in that film, I haven't seen it for years, but they go into the pub, and it's called The Slaughtered Lamb. It's just like, why would you go into a pub as a traveller in the middle of nowhere to The Slaughtered Lamb? And then they all look at him as he walks in.
It's proper. Yeah, it's all proper weird. And all the men just looking, just walk in. It's just like, what the fuck?
And then they like stay on the road. Stay on the road. So yeah, I can imagine that it's something like. So I've actually got an experience from a guy called Brandon Ronk from writing in 2014, and his story around Wendigo. So I will just tell you his experiences right now. His only experiences with the creature are very brief, but happened on a couple of occasions. The first, he was around 10 or so, playing in the woods around his home in honour of Cabell County. There were several expanses of thick woods, tall hills, and deep valleys. The sun just started going down below the hills, and he was walking back on one of the trails. He got a feeling he was being followed the whole way back, and about the time he was just about to cross a creek and into an open field where the house was, he heard crashing in the woods behind him. He ran to the house, slammed the door behind him, looked out the window, and remembers seeing a tall, thin, pale, bipedal dog-like thing peeking out from behind a tree on the opposite side of the creek before vanishing into nothing. And because he was so young, he put it up as his own imagination. So, I mean, I think being that young, I think you probably would, certainly your parents would say that was, you're just being a bit crazy.
Hmm.
Second encounter was during high school, so he's sort of mid-teens at that time, while out bow hunting late in the evening near dark. Once more, he was walking out of the same woods, heard a blood-curdling scream that echoed from a couple of hills over. He assumed it was some kind of animal that he wasn't familiar with and just walked home calm but curious, and that was his experience that night. But the third and last time that he had a possible experience was during rifle season when he was about 20 years old in 2011. It was out in Salt Rock, West Virginia, in a deep, dark hollow. After hunting all day, he didn't see a single animal, nothing. No squirrels, no deer, a few birds, but nothing. Dark was approaching, and he said he was frustrated and just hiking out of the hollow and about 3/4 of the way back to his vehicle. He heard movement behind him up on the ridge. He stopped, looked around and listened, looked through the scope and saw nothing. Kept on walking. About 5 minutes later, with about 10 to 15 minutes worth of sunlight left, he heard something on the ridge again. He looked over and saw what he thought was a pack of 4 or 5 coyotes following him about 70 yards up the hill and about 100 yards back, just peeking over the ridge. He had a 270 gauge with him, shotgun. He made sure it was loaded and took his safety cap off and aimed up to the animals to see if they were coyote, dog, deer, or what. He said these were not coyote, nor dogs, nor man, not even wolf, which are not even in West Virginia anymore. What he saw instantly flashed back to when he was younger, and he saw a pale bipedal dog creature. Pale greyish skin, fur, lanky arms, and a dog-like head with canine teeth showing. He fired again, and he kept loading his gun with his hands and climbed up and out of the woods as quick, but safe pace, whilst listening behind him the whole time. As he reached the car, he heard something coming towards him, and he was just in the car, so he turned it on and fired again as a warning shot. He got in the car, left, pumping with adrenaline, and after he got home, calmed down, his hunter instinct sort of kicked in, and he said he felt bad for shooting at the unknown creature, but it was hard to accept what he saw. His brain wanted to say it was a wild dog or deer, but it was not. However, he couldn't just let a wounded animal or whatever it was lay there. So the next day he went back to look for it. He found no blood, no tracks, no sign of any movement at all. The squirrels and everything were all back that day. So he counted it as a freak moment and let it be until we started reading up on this creature later on. He said definitely strange things were out there, but he guesses it was a Wendigo type creature. So this guy's had 3 experiences.
Yeah, that's mad.
Yeah. So, yeah, interestingly, there's no wolves in West Virginia anymore, so it couldn't have been something big like that. So, yeah.
You sometimes
Freaky.
think of, if you've seen the pictures of, like, bears, when, what's the word I'm thinking of? When they're, like, got no hair, and they're, like, malnourished. I can't think what the word is.
Oh, yeah, I've seen, yeah.
And
Yeah,
that
I've
looks
seen
like
them.
a creepy creature. You're not expecting to see like a bear like that. Obviously, you don't know what it is. It doesn't look like a bear. It just looks like something totally like just scary.
Yeah, completely alien. Yeah.
Looking across. Yeah, that just like they're like tend to be grey and like sort of torn because obviously the man knows and stuff. And I can't remember what the word is. They're crazy to see. Well, that's some mad stories. And I found one from sort of going back to the sort of First Nations. There's a story from the Chippewas of Rama, First Nation in Ontario, in Canada. So we're sort of moving up north a little bit.
Yeah.
And this story is from the early 20th century. And it's a collection of sort of folk stories that have been told over the years. And this time, A big Wendigo stole an Indian boy, but the boy was too thin, so the Wendigo didn't eat him up right away. But he travelled with him, waiting for him till he get fat. The Wendigo had a
What the
knife.
fuck?
The Wendigo had a knife, and then he cut the boy to see if he was fat enough, but the boy didn't get fat. One day, they came to an Indian village in native North Americans, and the Wendigo sent the boy to the Indian village to get something to eat. Sounds a bit mad. It's like, go get something to eat and then come back. But
A bit like
gave him
Hansel
too
and
much-
Gretel. It's a bit like
Yeah.
Hansel and Gretel. Yeah.
In fact, this reminds me. This is completely digressing off a different topic now. And we're watching. I think it's a program called Hangar 49 or something like this, and it was like UFO files that are like apparently government UFO files, and there's like episodes based around each file. And Hangar 49 or Hangar 9 or something.
Isn't it like Hangar 18?
Might
Or
be
is
Hangar 18.
Because Hangar 18 is the hangar in Area 51 where UFOs are supposedly kept. Big shout out to Dave Mustaine for the song Hangar 18 on Megadeth album.
Nice. Hangar 1, the UFO files, it's called.
Okay.
And it's based on UFON files. There we go, not government files. They're on like some random TV channel I used to watch them on. Anyway, some
Yeah.
of them are totally out there. And there was one where this couple in like rural mid America somewhere, and they were just driving along in the truck, and they see an alien at the side of the road. So they
Wow.
stop, they put him in the truck, they take it back to the house, they give it its tea, and then put it to bed. So they fed it, put it in, tucked it up in bed. They then rang the sheriff's office and said, "We've got this alien. Like, it's in our house. Like, we fed it." And the sheriff said to him, "All right, we'll come in the morning and have a look." It's not even like coming right away. They said just come the next day and come see him. So they fed it, put it to bed, and then they all just went to bed, just like it's a normal everyday occurrence. And when they woke up the next day, the alien had gone.
Oh, weirdly.
And that's the end of the story. Like, I
Wow.
was just like, why just pick up this alien and then just feed it and put it to bed and just casually ring the sheriff and be like, "Yeah, I've got an alien." And the sheriff's even more casual. "Yeah, I'll come around tomorrow. I can't be bothered coming around now. I'll come in the morning."
Yeah, it's too late for that.
That bit where he just for the Wendigo sent him to like the shops to get some food in the village just reminded me of that for some reason. Let's go and get some food. Anyway, so this boy told the villagers that the Wendigo captured him and he was nearby. So they went to try and find him. So they found the Wendingo, cut off his legs, and let's sort of try and injure him. Came back, he wasn't dead. He was eating the marrow from inside the bones of his own legs that were cut off.
Fucking hell. Okay.
They then killed him and cut him to pieces. And then that was the end of that Wendingo.
Wow.
So instead of dying, he
I've had-
decided to eat his own meat.
I tell you, we've spoken about it quite a bit, that some people have these really radical experiences, like completely, for want of a better phrase, alien experiences to anything that happens normally. And then they go about their day. Like we
Yeah.
spoke to Sasha Christie and her own experience, and like just went back into the house afterwards and just sort of carried on as normal. And I don't know. I don't know what that's all about. It's
It's mad.
crazy.
It's mad.
Crazy.
I just want to read this bit just because I
Yeah.
want to try and pronounce this word.
Go on then.
I don't know why I'm going to try and pronounce this because. So, among a lot of the First Nations that sort of have this Wendigo folklore, they performed a satirical ceremonial dance during times of famine to reinforce the seriousness of the Wendigo taboo. So, like you mentioned, it's kind of about greed and
Yeah.
sort of not sort of having to resort to cannibalism and stuff to survive. Don't get overpowered by greed, that sort of whole thing. So they do this sort of ceremony, sort of remind people about like the whole greed thing. We're in the famine, we're all in it together. Like, share the wealth. Don't just try and look out for yourself. And the ceremony is known as. Let's go. Let's try and say this in one attempt. Wendingo Okanzi Himawin. I think
I'll go with that. Yeah,
I think
I'll go with that. I don't know what it is.
With that one. So this involved wearing masks and dancing backwards around the drum. The last known Wendigo ceremony conducted in the USA was at Lake Wendigo in the Leech Lake Indian Reservation in northern Minnesota.
Wow.
Doesn't say when, but apparently that's where they used to do the ceremony. One of the places they used to do it.
Yeah, I can imagine that dance where they're doing it backwards with the mask on round a fire. And when I was looking for some the history of the Wendigo, you mentioned it at the start about Canada. It took me to Canada as well. So it appears that the whole of North America seems to have sort of some kind of rich history with this particular cryptid. A very weird looking character, and yeah, fascinating though. And I just think if there is something like that out there, and there quite possibly could be, because there's so much untouched forestry in the US
and caves.
I mean, and caves, and in the UK we've got a smaller amount of that, but you could almost see, like when we've been to Cannock Chase, you could see that something could live in there and evade people a little bit. But out there, it's like hundreds and thousands of acres of like nobody's ever goes to. So I'd like to think that creatures that we haven't found yet exist, and definitely creatures of this kind of supernatural kind of history, because the Native Americans talk about skinwalkers, for example, and those kind of, they all sort of tie in similar type creatures. So there's got to be something to it. There has to be, I'm sure.
Definitely.
But yeah, the Wendigo, crazy sort of creature. Horrible. Wouldn't want to encounter that at all.
Yeah, there's some mad backstories to it as well. Yeah, so that was this month's episode of Fallout 76 and Monsters. Thank you for listening. And next month, I think might be the last one. I'll have to make sure I'm not missing any. But next month will be the Snallygaster.
Oh, I love that.
So, yeah, join us next month for Fallout 76 and Monsters.
Bye.
Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is all there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains,
Nuclear strike
blowing
imminent.
like the breeze. Country.
Please exit the area at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your cooperation.
I'm very disappointed that this is going to be the last time we get to play that intro.
It makes me laugh every time, especially when we're both dancing. The people can't see.
It's a great song.
It's a great song.
It's a great night out song when you're in a club and Country Roads comes on and everyone just starts dancing to it.
Ah, okay.
There's an Irish club in Blackpool called Shenanigans, and they always play this, and they do like a slush, like a vodka slush, which is green, It's obviously island, don't know what the fuck's in it, but it is so nice. And literally, I want to go Blackpool just to go to this pub and have this slush. And they always play like Irish jigs, and they always play Country Roads, and everyone's dancing to it. And it's I love it. So I'm gonna miss having that as an intro.
We can use it somewhere else.
Haunted
It's
Country
about-
Roads.
Yeah. Why not? Why not?
So yeah, as you may gather, this is the last episode of our Fallout 76 Monsters series, based around the cryptids that feature in the Fallout 76 video game, out on PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, whatever. We come to the end of the series, so Greg, I know you downloaded the game and you did the first bit where you come out of the vault.
Yeah.
Have you played it since?
No. No.
Very disappointing.
The thing is, I can't. The controller's not very good for me. I'm not very good at the controller, and I can't. Oh, it's just like so I give up. I'm really sorry. I did download it though.
Well,
but it's there, ready to play. So never say never.
I'm gonna come round and I'll play. We'll have a boys' night and we'll play Fallout.
Yeah, and you'll see just how far I'm managed to get.
So yeah, this is the final episode. There are 6 kind of cryptid creatures in Fallout 76, but one is called the Sheep Squatch. I couldn't find any reference to a real life relation to that, so obviously we just not done an episode on that. But the final one we are going to do an episode on, joining Mothman, Flatwoods Monster, the Grafton Monster, and the Wendingo.
Yep.
So the last one we're going to talk about is the Snallygaster, the very lovely named Snallygaster.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting story behind this, which I'll come on to a bit later.
Can't wait to hear more. But as always, I'll talk about how the creature, the cryptid, is represented in game, and then Greg will talk about how it's the true life story behind the Snallygaster. So the Snallygaster, like most of the others in the game, is a mutated creature that was used with the experimental FEV, also known as the Forced Evolutionary Virus, causing it to turn into a dragon-like demon with dozens of eyes. Due to its mutations, this hostile monster prefers to inhabit highly toxic or irradiated areas, as they are innately immune to radiation damage. Therefore, players must be well equipped before searching the habitats of these beasts. Looking at its appearance, the Snallygaster is a fearsome, quadrupedal reptilian-like creature. It has 2 arms with 3 claws each, of which one is an opposable thumb, and 2 small limbs on the back of its body. It has no proper face, but it has a mouth with a long tentacle-like tongue covered in acid and has multiple eyes along its back. Not quite as long as Greg's tongue. Its appearance is similar to a mutated reptile or dinosaur and is known for its agility and ferocity in combat. A Snallygaster uses its tongue like a whip when it's up close. When it's at a distance, it will spit balls of corrosive acid at its enemy. It has at least 40 eyes, 2 rows of teeth, and thorns on its back. It's been described as being a dragon-like demon that haunts an area outside of neighbouring DC. They are easily recognisable from a distance due to their signature clicking noises and the thick, pungent odour they emit. When provoked, they will spit a ball of toxic slime from the mouth, which deals poison damage to the player. And it'll either then run up to the character and either scratch it or use its tongue, dealing more damage to the creature, to the enemy. Like many other creatures in the Fallout universe, the Snallygaster in Fallout 76 has been affected by radiation and genetic mutations caused by the nuclear war, that devastated the world. And like all the other creatures, there are multiple different variations and versions and mutations of Snallygaster. And namely, these are the bloody Snallygaster, which has a dark red hide, giving it the
Ooh.
appearance of being covered in blood.
Nice.
A fetid Snallygaster, which is kind of like a baby type version. A glowing Snallygaster, which glows green following exposure to high levels of radiation. And the scorched Snallygaster, which is a charred, fleshy Snallygaster infected with the Scorch Plague. If you listen to the previous episode, we talked about this is kind of the whole story behind the game is these Scorch Beasts have this plague that infects different creatures and makes them go a bit crazy.
Seen that in the game.
Yeah. Scorch Beast like the main. No, Scorch Beast Queen is like the main kind of end boss that you have to launch a nuke on her nest.
Okay.
And then she comes out and then you have to all team up and try and kill it. You usually get like 20 odd people all together trying to kill
Okay.
the queen. So, the name Snallygaster is a very cool name. And Greg giving me a look as if to say, you're taking this away from me.
Yeah, I was. I was waiting for you to. That's fine.
No, I'll leave that to Greg. I won't steal. This is interesting.
It depends if it's the same version that I've got. I imagine it is.
I'll leave it. I'll let Greg go on to the name. If it was different, I'll save it. I had a different story that I found. So yeah, I'll leave the name of it for now.
Okay.
The Snallygaster appearance, the concept art in the game, was an approach to just a very mutated creature instead of a mythical, horrifying beast. So it's not too like. It's not really. It is. I mean, it's based on the original story, but the design of it in the game isn't. Some of the others are very similar to sort of how the description is from real life. This is more concept art rather than being based on a creature. So that being said, I'll now pass on to Greg to give us the name and the history behind the Snallygaster.
Yes. Thank you, Ash. So, beginning in the 1730s, the Blue Ridge Mountains area was settled by German immigrants. Early accounts describe the community being terrorized by a monster called the Snallygaster, meaning quick spirit in German. But obviously, quick spirit doesn't really make it as scary, and Snallygaster was formed from Snallygeist.
I think everything sounds a bit more rough in German. A lot of words.
Yeah.
Like Snallygaster.
Yeah.
It's a bit harder.
Yeah, and it was saying it didn't quite. Snallygeist doesn't really. It's not as Americanized as Snallygaster. So it sort of I think just over time, just Snallygaster became the way of saying Snallygeist. And because it was also, you got poltergeist, which is noisy spirit.
Yeah.
So got the geist bit there. It's been suggested that the legend was resurrected in the 19th century to frighten freed slaves. And reports of a strange flying beast known as the Snallygaster first appeared in Frederick County in early February 1909. Story was carried prominently in Middleton's Valley Register, a weekly newspaper, for about a month, when the story just mysteriously died. In the early issues...
Cover up.
What? Cover
up.
Yeah, conspiracy theory. But as you'll see, the how high this got up in terms of publicity, it got to the highest levels, as I'll come on to. But in the early issues of this newspaper, the flying beast seemed to be everywhere at once: New Jersey, West Virginia, Ohio, and headed this way. It was reported to have created quite a stir in New Jersey, where its footprints were first discovered in the snow. The first person to see it, James Hardin, described it as having enormous wings, a long, sharp beak, claws like steel, and one eye in the middle of its forehead. He said it made a shrill, screeching noise and looked like a cross between a tiger and a vampire.
Wow,
which is quite weird.
That's a mad combo.
Yeah. So obviously there's a little bit of a difference between the eyes. You said it had 40 eyes, but this person seems to only had one, like a cyclops. A vampire may have been a good description, for it was reported to have killed a man, Bill Gifferson, by piercing his neck with a sharp bill and slowly sucking his blood. It was also seen in West Virginia, country roads, where it almost caught a woman near Scrabble, roosted in Alex Crow's barn, and laid an egg near Sharpsburg, where it was reported some men had rigged up an incubator to try and hatch it.
Wow.
T.C. Harborough of Casstown, Ohio, wrote a letter to the Valley Register in early 1909 telling of a strange beast that flew over his area, making terrible screeching noises. Harborough described it as having 2 huge wings, a large horny head, a tail 20 feet long. He said it looked as though it was headed his way. Sure enough, the Snallygaster was first spotted in Maryland by a man who fired a brick-burning kiln near Cumberland. The strange beast was seen cooling its wings over the outlet of the kiln, and when the beast's sleep was disturbed by the man, it emitted a blood-curdling scream and angrily flew away. It was also shot at, sighted in Middletown at Lover's Leap, and seen flying over the mountains between Gapland and Burkittsville, where it was reported to have laid another egg big enough to hatch an elephant.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big egg.
It is a big egg. Sightings of the Snallygaster were creating such a commotion that at one point it was reported that President Theodore Roosevelt might postpone a trip to Europe so he could lead an expedition to capture it.
Wow, I think that's the first one we've had where a president has been involved.
Absolutely. And apparently the Smithsonian Institute was also interested in the beast. From the description provided by a sighting in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, they determined the strange beast was in fact the Snallygaster. The last sighting in Frederick County in 1909 occurred near Emmitsburg in early March. 3 men fought the terrible creature outside a railroad station for nearly an hour and a half before chasing it into the woods. I mean, 90 minutes, you're fighting some weird beast.
It must be a big beast if eggs could hatch an elephant.
But what gets me is, like, each of these reports mentioned about screeching sounds. And there's no internet or anything back then. It was all, if you were in different towns and cities or whatever, I think it was quite hard to get information, I suppose, that you could be sort of influenced by maybe, but I don't know. The beast was often seen back and forth flying over the area and described as large as a dirigible, with arms resembling the tentacles of an octopus. The creature appeared to be able to change its size, shape, and colour at will. That's pretty insane. Although the creature made no attempt to harm any of the residents of the valley, most people sought safety in their homes when it flew overhead.
I mean, yeah, you would.
As you would, yeah. All descriptions seem to indicate, again, there was a Snallygaster, last reported in these parts in Maryland on March 5th, 1909. As a life expectancy of a Snallygaster is only about 20 years, I don't know where that information has come from. The most logical explanation seemed to be that the latest sighting was an offspring of the 1909 creature, possibly hatching from one of the eggs it was laid near Burkittsville. Since the Snallygaster appears so rarely, the Middletown Valley Register requested that local residents sighting the creature provide as accurate and detailed description as possible for scientific purposes. 2 such residents, Charles F. Martin and Edward M. L. Leiter, were able to provide the necessary information. While driving in a truck on the National Pike just east of Braddock's Heights, they spotted a Snallygaster flying about 25 feet overhead. They thoroughly confirmed the descriptions published the previous week. So maybe they just read the previous paper. Goes, yeah, that's what we saw as well. So there is a bit of a sad end to this, that the Snallygaster finally met its end in a way some might envy. The creature was flying near Frog Hollow in Washington County when it was attracted by the aroma of a 2,500 gallon vat of moonshine.
Oh, Jesus.
As the beast flew overhead, it was overcome by the fumes, as you would be, and dropped into the boiling mash.
You got
A short
pissed.
time later, he got pissed. A short time later, revenue agents arrived on scene. They had received information about the still, but were rather startled at the sight of a dead monster in the vat. 2 agents exploded 500 pounds of dynamite under the still, destroying the remnants of Snallygaster and the guy's workshop. A great deal has been written about Snallygaster since 1909. It's appeared in countless articles, Frederick's News Post, other area newspapers. It has also appeared in the Baltimore Sun, National Geographic, and Time magazine.
Wow.
And in 1976, the Washington Post sponsored an unsuccessful search for the Snallygaster, as well as other strange Maryland creatures. So, upon my researching, it doesn't just appear to be in Fallout 76. So, shooting off slightly, Harry Potter, weirdly, had a dragon-like magical beast known to exist in the New World. It'd been featured in many Muggle newspapers and was as well known that it competed with the Loch Ness Monster. And it was also called Snallygaster. It wasn't originally in the original books, but it was in the Fantastic Beasts. There's mentions of it, and also in the fandom of Harry Potter. Also, a Snallygaster was mentioned on GitHub, and it is a tool to scan for secret files on HTTP servers. But of interest to scholars is the nature of the various tales likely to be invented and not true. Those which were purported and patterned after dragon lore, the absence of Native American influence, and its connection to Pennsylvania Dutch lore, that's why they believe it's all made up, because there's no Native American influence, because the region was once inhabited by Cherokee Indians, Northeast tribe, Native Americans. So who knows? But a frightening creature nonetheless, and one that seemed to appear for a bit, come back, and then's gone. So
yeah, I mean, it seems to get, like I say, a lot of attention, like more so than a lot of the other ones. Maybe not the Mothman, but I think all the others. Like you got the newspapers, the Smithsonian, President Roosevelt.
Yep.
Like, that's a lot of attention being garnered onto something.
Yeah.
The descriptions are obviously a lot different from how it's in the game.
Yeah.
Like completely different. And that doesn't attack humans, which was quite interesting.
But it did attack that guy, and it looked like a bit of a tiger and a vampire. So who knows? But that was the only sort of report of anybody. But I also read elsewhere that some of the stories that were in the newspapers were from rival newspapers, and they suggested that it could just be a way of getting clickbait.
Yeah,
basically old school clickbait.
Bait.
Yeah, but the problem is because it's all back before cameras, all back before like proper forensic evidence. It's a different world back then, and I think stories could probably be embellished a bit.
Yeah, because like with the description, got so many different sort of features, like I say, the tiger, vampire, octopus, like tentacles,
one
eye, bird, obviously like with the wings and a beak and stuff, and sharp teeth. And
Yeah.
the long tail as well, which not sure what creature that would come off, but
Some kind of dragon stuff, I suppose.
yeah.
But yeah, it almost like there's so many different reports that they were just trying to sort of make up what it looked like. So although it's got quite a lot of publicity and a lot of write up to the president, you don't know if it's as it almost doesn't seem as credible as, say, the Mothman or some of the others that have had more specific, like police presence and other people involved. They're just very rare cases with this one. So
It has lasted because there is the Washington DC's biggest outdoor beer festival is called Snallygaster.
there is a beer festival, yeah.
That's why it comes from the German influence as well, because you get like this sort of German beer festival, don't you?
Yeah.
That's the German, like where the name came from the German,
which
is interesting.
Yeah, so it's one of those stories that appears to it's got original sort of roots and origins back in the German settlers, but on and off, really. Incidentally, the Harry Potter one, it was back in the 1600s or something, so it was alleged, like the story is that it was before the Snallygaster was actually a real thing. So
Interesting.
Cool.
That was great. So yeah, we guess we'll be signing off our Monsters of Fallout 76 series. I thoroughly enjoyed my favorite video game, so it's been fun doing a little bit of a dive into some of them creatures.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's been interesting, and although I haven't played the game properly, I thoroughly enjoyed learning a bit more about the game and the cryptids and how a lot of them are quite close to the real thing and the real story. So,
and it does highlight, because like the game is just set in West Virginia, so how, I mean, this is only like a few of the many different cryptids, creatures, folklore that just comes from West Virginia and the surrounding area. It's just mad how just one region has so many weird shit going on.
Yeah, very weird, and maybe I won't go there then.
Cool. So what's coming next? We don't know yet. We will keep everyone informed. Let us know if you like this series. If this is something you like to do something similar with. Any ideas for maybe other games or anything popular culture that is it utilizes the tales but uses its own take on it, and then we can have a dive into the real stories behind them.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It has. So we shall catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Pursuit of the Paranormal, title music created by Steve Yarwood and Ambiinfinity. If you like the show, please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, X, and Instagram. And if you really like the show, please rate and review the show wherever you are listening. It really does help. See you next time, and until then, stay weird.